everyone, it's Deb here from Together We Mix. I'm just doing this quick little video and it's going to be really different to your normal comparison, which you're probably going to get flooded and inundated by consultants showing you the difference between the two models. I'm very much into helping a person decide and make an informed decision based upon what their kitchen needs are, what their lifestyle needs are. And I want to talk about some pluses and negatives about both the machines and who I think the TM6 would really suit, and potentially why the TM7 as well. So rather than going through, and I've seen some amazing little side-by-side where people have got each of the accessories and showing you the difference between the accessories. I really think at the end of it, it comes down to your style of cooking. It comes down to how you use your Thermomix. It comes down to how many people you're cooking for. It comes down to your time. It comes down to a lot of different factors other than what the actual model looks like. And I know even for some people, they will just purchase this TM6 even if the TM7 is more catered to their needs, purely on this is a white machine. However, I've got a white kitchen here and I actually think my TM7 looks pretty nice by itself in this kitchen. So there's just a thought, you know, it's nice to see someone with a white kitchen and how a TM7 would look in that space. So first of all, I want to just say that for me, you know, I kind of liked the new design. You know, a lot of people think, oh, it's too modern. You know, we're getting into too much technology here. But I really feel like the TM7 is the TM31's answer to upgrading. And I will talk about that more. But I think if you have to upgrade to technology as a TM31 owner, I do strongly feel like this suits your cooking style, especially because of those TM31 owners who do actively a lot of cooking in their existing TM31. They follow cookbooks, they manually cook, they're very creative cooks because they don't have the cookie-do or the guided recipe, and they like throwing things in and just working and cooking the food to their way. The TM7 is the answer. But if you're a person who more is suited to the non-confidence, you might have children at that early age point, so they're not in their teens or older teens. You might even find that the TM6 is a better option, so that there's more users using the Thermomix than this one. I will say that for my kids, especially my oldest who has learning difficulties and he's on the spectrum, that simple step-by-step with the one instruction for the executive function really helps him. So if you're an NDIS participant, particularly, this might be for the handy held, the ergonomics of actually carrying it as well there. So there's some thoughts in regards to this. Now, obviously, a lot of people, if you've seen already on multiple things on how this TM6 screen looks, and I'll see if I can bring this slightly closer for you so you get to see. Okay, so obviously we've got our one timer here. And I'll go through this machine and then I'll go through the TM7. So we've only got a timer here and we love using that additional timer. I don't know who has a TM6 already and you use that quite frequently. And this video that I'm doing, it doesn't matter whether you're trading up for a TM31, TM5 to a TM6. It doesn't matter if you've upgrading from a TM6 to a TM7. It might be that you're the first time buying a Thermomix and you don't know now, because you've got the option which one to choose, because it does sound exciting getting all those accessories included with the discounted price for this, but does it match your cooking style? So the bowl capacity is exactly the same between the two. Even though this one looks chunky and bigger, it is actually the same size. We've got for our manual cooks, our time, temperature and speed, which is so easy and accessible and we can do straight here. And I know myself, when I first found out this wasn't like this on the new machine, I was a little bit hesitant, because anyone who follows my previous Adapt in the Mix page and Together We Mix, I do a lot of adaptation due to dietary requirements, and something that has the ability to have that easy access to manual. And because I'm a fan of the TM31, I really love this. However, it does do more on that, and I'll explain later. Okay, so if we swipe this way, we get all our modes. We can edit which modes that we can have on here. If there's too many and you don't want to have some of the modes on there, that's fine. And then if we swipe that way, we're straight into our cookie dough, which is really helpful. But we can even do a search from here, and that will actually even take us through to our cookie dough as well. But it's been a little bit slow there. Here we go. Okay, so if I go home, we're back to this page. Now, on the three dots, this is like our command center, and you'll notice the difference on the TM7, how different this really is. So within this, we've got my recipes, my week, recently added, and settings. It's very simplified. So TM6 will very much work with people who, especially with executive function, or people who just want minimalist, no fuss. They're not really kitchen lovers. They don't enjoy cooking. They do it out of necessity. This machine would probably lend more to your cooking style. But you still have the flexibility of actually creating in it, but it kind of shows that, you know, especially if you're trying to get your husband or your better half to come on and do some cooking and they don't normally cook, they're going to be more feeling confident and not so overwhelmed when they come to the TM6. Now, on top of this, so we've got our, you know, our week or what have you. That's pretty much where we go from there. And we know that this, the temperature here can go all the way up to Varoma, which there is no dial for the Varoma unless you go into the steaming mode on the new machine, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But you've got going up from 120, and in guided recipes only, you can get a high temperature setting of 160 degrees. So you need to go into an already pre-made recipe to be able to access the high temperature setting. You need to also sometimes bear in mind the weight. When you go into those high temperature, you can't go too much over, or the setting won't work because of the sensors. And the other thing to note with the high temperature, if you do use it within a cook, is if you stop it, it will restart. There's no changing or adjusting the time. You can't actually see the time that is actually set to the high temperature. So every time you're pressing pause or stop in the high temperature, it will just revert back to the beginning of that duration, that time. So that's something to note with that. And this was really where Thermomix really leveled up, I feel. If I'm really honest, you know, I've been doing consultancy for over 15 years on and off, and I did take a severe break between TM5 and TM6. I was there at TM5 launch. I sold TM5s, but then I got to a point where I actually prefer the TM31 over the TM5. So I took a step down because I felt even though we had the technology, it wasn't quite on par. Where then when the TM6 came out, I feel like that's where we go, right, now we're working with something. Now we've got a machine. So if anyone's got a TM5, I would be strongly upgrading to a TM6 or a TM7 because really there's no comparison with that particular model. I get why people want to stay with the TM31 because it's a classic, it's well worn, it's really good for commercial cooking. It is fantastic, you know, the classic, and also the ability to be more touch, and people who are wanting to take back some of that control, not having everything in their life digitalized. And I get that that could be like a point where they're just going, you know, kind of thing. But anyway, and then we've got obviously the dial. Now, I've got to talk now about, and I'm very much a realist, the biggest thing that I was so excited about with the TM7 is I am a messy cook. Fully messy cook. I will admit it. It gets really dirty and dusty in here. I've got a little special brush that I'll wipe it with. These can get really dirty and you have to go in and really clean them. In here you'll see all in the grooves. It's like, you know, when you got around your stovetop and you get some of that scum coming in here. So unless you're a very particular cook and you're very worried about appearances, like it's clean enough, but is it easy to clean? And I will say no. And like for some people, they don't want to spend those extra amount of times, you know, always having to tidy and cleaning up a lot. This can be very temperamental. People don't understand how this can impact your cooking because if you don't keep this clear and use something to dust, all the food collects in it. But you know, it's not a be all and end all, and you've got to remember that with like any device, they weren't aware until overuse of, you know, how they could improve this, okay, what they could potentially do. They just saw this as an on-off pause button, and I get that, but for regular users, this button can, especially if you don't regularly clean it, can be a bit of a concern. Okay, so that's some information about what I don't like, but would it stop me enough not upgrading to a TM6? Never, because if I could have no machine but only the TM6, I would forever still have a Thermomix on my bench. And you know, I never thought I was going to give up my TM31, but when I got my two TM6s, I just thought, that's it, I'm going to go with the TM6, and I never thought I would actually give up my TM31. So it is enough for those TM31 really enthusiasts to go, yes, this is a really good, robust machine. Okay. Now, I'm just going to extend this. Okay. Now, this has got an inbuilt glider board, as you can see coming up. What I'm going to do is I've got this, and I'm just going to see if I can bring this down a bit for you. I've got this command station. Now, there's 3 different options that you can have on your command station depending on what your cooking style is. So this machine is all about the way you cook, not how I cook, not how someone else cooks, but how you cook. And we all cook slightly different. So there's 3 different options of how you may have the screen look. So if I go into, let me see, settings. I'm just going into settings. And just seeing where we get to change the display. Don't know. have to work that one out. I haven't yet played around enough to see how we can change the look of how this is set up. But when you get your TM7, it gives you how would you like your TM7 to be set up, and you select. So I selected with the preference of manual cooking because I'm an adaptive cook. I love cooking with cookbooks. I love creating, and I love doing things my way. I never ever follow a recipe the same as the recipe. So even though I use Guide to Cook, I never use it exactly for each screen. And this is where some people who are creative, who feel that they're kind of limited, they have that more flexibility of what they do within their cook. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. Now, what this display has is it's got planned recipes. So it's showing what I've planned to cook, perhaps today, and then I can go to my week and it will straight from the home screen take and show me what I've got for the week. I haven't saved anything yet, but that's okay. And then the pre-clean is already here. So say if you're just wanting to wash the bowl, it's nice, easy, accessible right in this command center. We've got tutorials in the event that we need tutorials, which I probably might go and see how I can edit this screen. And then this is the one that I love. It's called manual cooking. Now this looks slightly different. The scales are down here. So the scales aren't all up the same. You would have to, on the TM6, always swipe to go to the scales. I love the fact that no longer are we swiping to use the scales. They're already there on the manual cook setting. So that is number one, what I absolutely love. I love the fact that it shows me whether it's locked or unlocked. The screen, we've got our time, temperature, and speed, and this here is the reverse button. So it is quite small. So you've just got to remember, if you're doing the manual, to actually select that. I would say that having that on the TM6 right under the speed kind of gives you that prompt to change it. So, but I haven't had any problems. I've always gone in and just reversed. It's been fantastic. And incidentally, I haven't needed to put it on reverse because I do a lot of open cooking. And that's another thing that's really good about the TM7. So, oh, here we go. So there's show tips. So there's some little tips that you can have a look as well within the manual cooking. From the manual cooking, I've got my drop down, which is our command center. So my pre-clean is there, my scales again is there. So obviously if I was cooking, I could still use my scales, and there's the timer on there. And if I was in a recipe in the background, that would actually live there as well. So there's that. So then it goes to bookmarks, it goes to recently cooked, and it goes trending now. So I've got those all on the command center, and you can see how clear and easy it is to look. Down the left-hand side is what was in our command center that we had on the TM6, just over on these three dots. We've actually got the information here. So we've got the search button, which will take us to Cookie Dough. We've got Cookie Dough here. It says I'm in a recipe, and there's three little dots over here, which I was looking at this last night. I'll go cancel recipe. So if we go to Cookie Dough, it will come up slightly different to our Cookie Dough. If we go here, that's going to show that, where this has all different options in Cookie Dough. It's like you're in your Cookie Dough account. So we'll have recently cooked, we have bookmarks, we've got my recipe list, we've got collections, and we've got created recipes. So they're all on there all along here. Okay, so that's if we go into recipes. So if you're wanting to do a search, then it goes into the traditional cookie dough that we have on the TM6. What I love on here particularly is if we look at, just trying to see, recipes, just going to go in one, say, I'm just bringing up this recipe as an example. You've got a little bookmark icon up here, the 3 dots. If you're at this screen, you can add it to your week, not just cook today now. On this one, if I was to go to a recipe, let's bring it over. All right, if I was to bring this recipe, I would have those 3 dots, and I can only cook today or bookmark, where this one I can cook today. I can cook today and add to my week and add to my shopping list, all from my device. So that's really handy there. The look at the recipe, obviously it reads really well. It reads, I love the fact that you can toggle between ingredients, preparation, tips, and more. So you've got an overview all from there, and you can go boom, 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 boom. Unlike if we were to go in this recipe, I would have to scroll down and scroll down. And so it kind of really helps like block out, so you can just go, right, I'm going to go and get all my ingredients out, and you can do that nice and easy without feeling like you're going to miss something there as well. So that's that. If we were to go in the recipe, this is where you see the big difference. And this is where creativity and time efficiency all interplay together. So if you're a person who likes to get, like you would with a cookbook, get all your ingredients out all at the one time, you literally will see, I'll try a different recipe actually. I'll cancel this one and I'll do one that requires cooking. All right, I'm gonna do this. Okay, what you'll see, and if I bring this closer, okay, what you see is there is a block, and they've got a list of ingredients in this. Can you see that? So what that means is we're going to be adding all of this at the one time. So you just go and put it all in. No longer going next, 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 or trying to see what you're doing. You've got all the ingredients there. You know what needs to go in the bowl all at the one time. So this shortens the time, I guess, because you don't have to go next, next, next. You just put it all in together and you know what comes in at this stage. The other thing that it does is if you're weighing in certain ingredients, when you're weighing in, so for instance, this, if I take that off, it automatically tears the bowl for you. Before on this one, if we were to start, we would have to, if we took off the lid, we'd have to re-tear. So even that little bit of time saver is really helpful. But if you're weighing out, say, these peppers and you got to this right amount, it automatically would tick that off for you. You can manually tick what you're using in that recipe, which is really handy because you are doing that. And as much as I said that's really helpful for NDIS people, especially executive function and needing those minimalist tasks, you may have people who still need some learning and understanding how to follow instructions, but giving them more autonomy to do that. I also think this is really crucial for the teens in this generation, I'll be honest. I think that pressing button leads to no kind of working out processes, no understanding of what's going in at what stages, because they're just following instructions rather than, analyzing and going, oh, I see why these ingredients go together. So I feel like this is a little bit old school, and this is where I feel like it lends to the TM31, it's because we're doing it as if we're following a proper cookbook like we did with our TM31. And we can skip, we can go next, we can keep skipping. And if we went back, we would just have to set that as the current step, okay? So that's what we do. But what we could do is, this is telling me to saute. Now it automatically in this one puts the high temperature setting on. But say this recipe only had 100 degrees. I might want to go out of this, go to my mode section and go straight into my open cooking and cook with an open lid, because it's at the 100 degrees. I won't have it on a speed and it's doing like it is on the stove top. So I can do that within, and then I just have to pull this down, go back, and I'm at where I am at. So I love that, because I will admit I always use my browning mode for my cooking. So even if I wanted to brown something and this wasn't browning, I just go into my browning and it gives you gentle or intense. So we've got more say of how we're having that high temperature, not only that we can access it within any recipe, but how we utilize that high temperature. We can even adjust the temperature within that 140 and 160 range. We don't have to stay on the 160. We can change the duration, the time for that. So that is really amazing. And we can use this purely as a mode in itself without being in a recipe. And I think that's a big game changer there. So, you know how I mentioned that if we went home, I'll just go down. This is my command center. There is an option that you could just have your modes all as your command center as well. And then there's another one which I think is lending to Cookie Doo being your command center. But it's endless what we can do. So another feature I really want to shout out in between is our steaming mode. I mentioned earlier that on here, if I bring this one over now, on the TM6, we can go all the way up to Varoma, okay? So we can do that from the main screen. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I love Varoma. I use my Varoma religiously, almost on a day-to-day basis. I think there's so much benefits, and don't get me started on the new size and look of the new Varoma. I would personally just even upgrade just for the look of the new Varoma. But what I'm wanting to talk to you about is with the steaming now, they've got this little button here, and unfortunately, we no longer got it on the manual screen. However, we've got it as a separate mode. So steaming is what we know as Varoma. And we've got 3 levels that we can have it set at. and it's really good. It's got a picture. So this one is if you're just using the basket. So you know how sometimes we use the Varoma and we've got a basket in there. And then this one is if we're using, whereas both the basket and the Varoma. Okay, so that's really gonna be a lot more intense. And then the Varoma if we're just using the top Varoma. So they're different intensities of that steam and the speed and that they're actually going on. So we've got all the other modes that you already existing have on the TM6 with the addition of the browning with the gentle intense, the open cooking and the steaming, that we've got that on there. So with what I talked about before, I personally feel that this is the one for TM6 owners. They're used to reading cookbooks. They're used to putting things in individually and doing things their way. If you're a person who is only using your Thermomix because you like using cookbooks, because you're so used to doing prepping and doing things for yourself, and you're not maximizing what the potential is of the TM6, you may find that you would potentially be doing so much more in your TM7 because you're just almost doing it as if you're doing it on the stovetop. You can interchange to browning, you can interchange to open cooking, you can do all manual cooking. You do not need to go into your guided cook at all. So, like I said, my little side-by-side comparison is all about different to, let's not look at accessories, let's look at different styles. TM7 is amazing for the messy cooks because I'm telling you, just getting this off and cleaning it, wiping it down is so much easier. I love that it doesn't look so chunky on my bench when this one isn't here. But even the new look with the steamer basket is quite nice. Let's talk about the lid. This is one thing I do want to touch upon, is it's got an inbuilt sensor, and you'll notice now if you're a person who always looks in your bowl, that is something that you won't need to do. But I'm going to tell you something. At any point of time while you're in a cook, you can take off the jug and it stops. When the dish is done, you stop and it will go, like if you go like that, it stops straight away. It is incredible. No more waiting for arms, no more waiting for countdown, the 20 seconds for it to open up, even on the highest temperature. So that alone is a time saver and a game changer. So I hope I gave you some little things to think about in regards to your upgrade or your purchase of your TM6 or TM7, and maybe you've thought about which one kind of resonates with your kitchen.